Hey friends, last week we talked about accommodations in my life with ADHD. I highly recommend you read the description for that video as well as for this video. This week we're going to continue to talk about accommodations. This time we're talking about sort of accommodations that freelancers, particularly art freelancers, might benefit from or might find useful for use in their studios and in their practices. So keep watching. So right now I'm about to partake of one of my favorite accommodations. I am going for a mid-afternoon walk. I really enjoy going for afternoon walks, especially when the weather is as beautiful as it is today. It helps me clear my mind, helps me get some important phone calls done, and it's great exercise. It's also a great way for me to sort of shed some excess energy that I seem to always have midday. I either want to fall asleep or I want to explode into the sun. So walks are a great way for me to put that energy to really good use and have some downtime to think of new things. So in last week's My Life with ADHD, I feel like I may have misconstrued or misrepresented some things. So I've done some research, which I should have done beforehand, and basically the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, only protects those of us with ADHD if it is found to be basically life impeding, which seems like a shame. A lot of the accommodations I mentioned though are fairly small accommodations, and if you phrase it correctly, if you can really show that giving you those accommodations will help you improve your performance, you probably don't even need to mention that you're ADHD. In fact, the general consensus is that you don't disclose it to your boss. But today we're talking about what us freelancers can do for accommodations. And a lot of this is going to be kind of common sense, but sometimes we need a good reminder. Sometimes we need someone outside us to tell us it's okay to take breaks. It's normal to take breaks. You don't have to work 8 hours straight. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started with some accommodations for freelancers and those of us who are self-employed. To begin with, I'm going to list some of the job accommodations that the Job Accommodation Network, JAN, recommends that employers consider when their employees ask for accommodations. These seem like great suggestions that can be very easily worked into our everyday lives. So you can divide large assignments into several smaller, more actionable tasks. You can set a timer to make an alarm after allowing or assigning ample time to complete a task. So basically you can kind of frame your time limit, or some of us work better, like we talked about last week, with boundaries. This is basically setting a boundary for your work. Provide a checklist of assignments. That's like the rubric we discussed last week. Supply an electronic organizer or apps and train them how to use them effectively. There are loads of productivity apps for free and for very nominal amounts of money on the App Store. I haven't personally found any that I like, but I am totally open to your suggestions, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have to recommend in the comments below. Use a calendar or a wall calendar to emphasize due dates. And I don't have a wall calendar, but I do have a big desk calendar, and I really like that. If I had more space and less clutter, I would love to have a big wall calendar. The problem is I wouldn't remember to change it out. So if you've got someone else to do it, or if you can figure out a way to have it like electronically changed, that would be phenomenal. Develop a color-coded system, and each color represents a task, an event, or level of importance. I already use the color coding system. I recommend you guys do too, but I really like the idea of color coding level of importance. And it could be very basic, green, yellow, red, with green being least important and red being like absolutely urgent. Allow a coworker or supervisor to add entries on the calendar or to double check entries added by the employee with ADHD. That reminds me a lot of when I was in grade school and middle school and high school, where we had planners and our teacher would basically check everybody's planner before they'd let anybody out the door. That probably works if you really, really need accountability. If you work in like a co-working situation, if you're making an anthology, if you're kickstarting a project with a group of people, if you work on a team, that can be really great. But Trellos can be an even better solution. Like setting up a Trello board can be an even better solution for that. And then for problems with memory, it recommends that you provide written instructions, which I love. That's why I really prefer people communicate with me via email, and if they absolutely insist on calling me, I'm always taking notes, or I may ask to record the call. Allow additional training time for new tasks. Yes. I always felt like I took so much longer than everybody else to pick stuff up, and I'd have to put a lot of time in my off hours to learning things. In fact, that's been like a big detriment, I feel like, with my art, is it takes me twice as long to learn a skill as other people. So JAN recommending that additional time is allowed for learning new tasks and for training. That is a phenomenal accommodation. Offer training refreshers. That sounds great. Use flowchart to indicate steps in a task. Provide verbal or pictorial cues. Use post-it notes as reminders of important dates or tasks, and use apps. Then for those of us who struggle with concentration, they recommend to reduce auditory distractions, which is huge for me. I know some of you guys work with podcasts and YouTube on, and it's hit or miss for me which ones I can and can't work to, but most of the time I have to turn that off during the day because it's just too much stimulation. So purchase a noise canceling headset or earbuds, hang sound absorption panels, provide a white noise machine, relocate employees' office space away from audible distractions, or redesign employees' office space to minimize audible distractions. It really sounds to me, for those of us who work from home, the noise canceling headset and redesigning our space to best suit our needs seems like the best option. To reduce visual distractions, install space enclosures, cubicle walls. In fact, I go to visit Joseph at his work sometimes, and he works in a cubicle. He's worked in 2 cubicles, I believe, and I love it. I love it. I love how self-contained it is. I love how much counter space he has. In fact, that's what I want for my next studio space. I'm not kidding, is I want a cubicle. Reduce clutter in the employee's work environment. That is something I would benefit from, but I really struggle with. And I actually have a sub-series I'm working on where I'm working on de-hoarding my studio from sort of an ADHD slant and using you guys as my accountability buddies. So I definitely think that's a great idea. Redesign employees' office space to minimize visual distractions. Relocate employee space away from visual distractions. And then organization and prioritization. A lot of us have trouble with that, and a lot of us need guidance with that, especially when it comes to self-employment. Develop color-coded system for files, projects, or activities. Use weekly chart to identify daily work activities. Use the services of a professional organizer. Use a job coach to teach, reinforce organization skills. Assign a mentor to help employee. Allow supervisor to assign prioritization of tasks. Assign new project only when previous project is complete when possible. Provide a cheat sheet of high priority activities, projects, people, etc. and use apps. That whole list sounds amazing, right? Like that whole list would, if I could have someone else helping me with that, like to have a mentor or to have an organization coach or to have someone come in and redesign my space, all of those would be a huge help. It's keeping that up that would be the hard part. The site has loads of great suggestions. My list seems really puny compared to that. Social skills. Provide a job coach to help understand different social cues. And ever since we launched Ink Drop Cafe, I am discovering more and more that I don't have the people management skills that other people seem to assume I should just have. When I was in high school, I was in ROTC, and I was like a flight commander for F flight, which is at Hahnville, was stereotypically the worst flight. I got all the kids who had been problem kids at their other schools. And I am not I'm a very laissez-faire leader. I'm not stern at all. I don't like punishing people. I don't like taking things away from people. So my solution to guiding them was to kind of become friends with each and every one and find out what was going on in their lives and just talk to them. And I really enjoyed that. They ended up calling me Mama Beck, and it was just a really rewarding situation for me. So my leadership style is very different from like a work environment leadership style. And when I have to lead groups of people, prefer to lead very small groups of max 5. That or just teach, and you know, where you tell them to do the thing and you hold them accountable for doing the thing. And when you're doing an online social group, that doesn't fly, that doesn't work. So my solution to that has just been to be like, okay, and then let it go and step away, but that doesn't really seem like a good solution either. So I'm definitely still learning, and I'm not super satisfied with how I've been learning, because it has been very much try and fail, try and fail, try and fail, try and fail, and not making a lot of progress. But I am learning things, so I would love to have someone come in and teach me how to do that, but I don't want to pay someone to teach me how to lead a group of people that I'm doing as volunteer. Identify areas of improvement for employee in a fair and consistent manner. Oh, I would love that, especially if they came and watched me at a con. That would be super. Make attendance at social activities optional. Oh, that would be amazing. I do like social activities, but I hate it when they're mandatory, because it puts this additional level of pressure on me that I usually have a lot of anxiety about it. Use training videos to demonstrate appropriate behavior in workplace. I know people make fun of those, but a lot of us really do learn from seeing and mimicking. Encourage employees to minimize personal conversation or move personal conversation away from work areas. I love that. Provide sensitivity training with disability awareness to all employees. I know people kind of make fun of sensitivity training, but I do think it's really important. And I know that I, as someone with ADHD, am not always good at reading people. And sometimes I have made jokes that came across as cruel when that wasn't my intention, or I just kind of put my foot as far into my mouth as I could because I said the first thing I thought instead of taking a moment to think through it. So I think sensitivity training is fantastic. Encourage all employees to model appropriate social skills. Adjust the supervisory method to better fit the employee's needs. Allow the employee to work from home. That works better for some people than for others. Adjust method of communication to best suit the employee's needs. Use role play scenarios to demonstrate appropriate behavior in the workplace. Doesn't all of this sound really good? Doesn't it sound like we should have been taught this in school? Those of us who have to work from home? Wouldn't that be phenomenal? And then hyperactivity, impulsivity. Provide structure breaks to create an outlet for physical activity, like the walk I took earlier this afternoon. Utilize a job coach to teach and reinforce techniques to control impulsivity. Allow the employee to work from home. Review conduct policy with employee. Adjust method of supervision to better prepare employee for feedback, disciplinary action, and other communication about job performance. Use services of an EAP. I don't know what an EAP is, but I'm sure one of you guys will let me know. Provide private workspace where employee will not disturb others by tapping, humming, or fidgeting. So a lot of us who work from home, maybe that's why we work from home, is it allows us the room to do these things. Multitasking. Individuals with ADHD may experience difficulty performing many tasks at one time. And this can occur regardless of the similarity of tasks or the frequency of performing the tasks. And I know that as self-employed, work-from-home freelancers, convention artists, we are expected to do everything yesterday, from blog to YouTube to streaming to commissions to comics to webcomic to answering people's emails to being friendly and chatty and outgoing on Twitter. We're really expected to do everything in the day. Stuff that would take other people a week to do is our daily lives. So some of us are better at it than others, and some of us drop the ball frequently. Separate tasks so that each can be completed one at a time so that you don't get overwhelmed. That's something I actually have to do all the time, is I have to make a detailed list, and I'm going to talk about that in an upcoming video, a detailed list of everything I have to do, and that helps me kind of get out of that panic zone of multitasking. Create a flowchart of tasks that must be performed at the same time, carefully labeling or color coding each task in sequential or preferential order. Provide individualized or specialized training to help employee learn techniques for multitasking. Example, typing on computer while talking on the phone. Oh man, I can't do that. I'll end up typing what the person was saying. I can't text and walk. I'd love to. I've sure tried it over the years, but I can't. Maybe someone could teach me that, maybe not. Identify tasks that must be performed simultaneously and tasks that can be performed individually. Provide specific feedback to help employee target areas of improvement. Remove or reduce distractions from work area. Clearly represent performance standards such as completion time or accuracy rates. paperwork. That thing all of us hate and are really, some people with ADHD like it. I hate it. I'm really bad about, I'm good about doing it, and then I'm bad about mailing it or scanning it or getting it to the person who it needs to be gotten to. I could really use an assistant. When possible, automate paperwork by creating electronic files. Use speech recognition software to enter text or data into electronic files. Save time filling out paper forms by completing information in advance, using pre-filled forms or adhering pre-printed stickers. So even for us convention artists, let's say we're doing commissions and we have to mail them in, having address labels is a huge help, because it just saves that little bit of time, but it is such a monotonous task to write that out every single time. Use checklists in place of writing text. Supply large quantities of regularly used forms. Color code forms for easy identification. Redesign commonly used forms using a large font, double or triple space, and provide adequate space for handwritten response. So all of those sound really good. I would love to work in a workplace where those were like your typical accommodations. That would be a very pleasant workspace for somebody like me, and I feel like I could be really productive. So how can we use these accommodations in our lives? How can we take these professional in-office accommodations and use them as freelancers and as people who work from home? So before I read that list, I made a list of my own accommodations, stuff that I use and benefit from. And this is stuff that comes from my own life, working from home, doing conventions, taking a lot of my work from the internet, or doing a lot of internet work. So if you're a freelancer and you have to submit your hours, let's say you're an hourly employee, keep track of your hours on a calendar. So one of the things I used to do when I freelanced for Doodle Studios is I had a document where I had my dates and I would put in the hours that I worked, and then I'd calculate that later. So I would write from 2 to 4 or from 4 to 6. I wouldn't even figure out how many hours I worked until I was submitting my form. And that worked okay. There are programs and apps that will digitally log your hours. Toggle is a good example of that, so you don't even have to write that stuff down if you don't benefit from writing that stuff down. Keep set work hours, but schedule it for when you are the most productive. I need to be better about that. I'm not good about boundaries. I want to please everyone and make people happy, and I don't want to lose work. So I will tend to respond to emails at 12 o'clock at night when I really shouldn't be. I should be going to sleep. But one of my goals for next year, or goals for the second half of this year, is to find a work schedule that works for me when I am the most productive and stick to it and ask that others respect it as far as that goes. And honor your work hours. A lot of ADHD people tend to become people pleasers because a lot of us grew up kind of being ostracized. So we will like bend over backwards to make people happy and to be good enough. And that can mean not honoring your own work hours. Like, I don't know, some friend of yours is like, hey, come grocery shopping with me. I don't want to go by myself. And it's in the middle of your workday and you're like, whatever, sure, I'll help you. That would be a good example of not really honoring your work hours. Now, if you need to go grocery shopping and you shop better with a shopping buddy, by all means, go grocery shopping. You know yourself best. But you are a working individual. You are creating work. You are working. It doesn't matter if you're working from home or you're working in an office. You are still working and your time is valuable. So don't just toss everything because somebody else asked you to. Make time to work on your projects. That is something I am seeing pop up a lot, is other artists are using all of their time to work on paying work, and then they end up burnout and really angry and just depressed. Even if you just do like a 5-minute sketch of your characters, some really janky looking doodle, you're gonna feel a lot better because you worked on your thing. Schedule that time if you have to. 30 minutes isn't a lot to devote. Use a Trello board for all ongoing projects, long form, short form, paid, and personal. And I can show you guys my video, or I can show you guys screen caps of my video editing Trello. There's 3 of us involved and we work with an out-of-house editor, and I feel like that's the only way this would work at all. Color code tasks with assigned colors and stick to that. So I've shown you guys my calendar before, and I'm going to show it to you guys again in the list video, but I use red to denote when I've scheduled YouTube content, blue to denote when I scheduled blog content, and pink represents conventions, and green represents comic work. Make lists and break it down so that you're not facing make a book, you're facing all the individual steps in making a book. For repetitive menial tasks that don't require focus, call a friend or listen to a YouTube or a podcast. It helps the time pass quicker, and it really helps me keep on task with these tasks that don't really require a lot of mental thought or a lot of processing if I'm talking to somebody else. And then what to do when your brain has melted, because we've all had those days, just bad brain days. I play the game, least I could do. That is when I make a list of the things I need to do that day, and I put a little circle, the things that absolutely have to get done, and then I pick the easiest of those. Sometimes it's just responding to an email, sometimes it's just scheduling a video. I do that easy task, and then I pick another easy task, the next easiest task on my least I can do list, and pretty soon I kind of get into the momentum. My brain's kind of clicking along a little bit better. Set a timer. I have found that having a concrete, limited amount of time really makes me get tasks done. If I've only got an hour to do it, I sure will try. And there's something really nice in knowing that I only have to do it for an hour. That once that hour has ended, I can move on to something else that is less mentally painful. Change your work environment. So when it comes to comics, there are certain things that I can do at home, no problem. And then there's certain things where I really benefit from a change of environment. And Joseph and I kind of joke that whenever he can tell when it's time for me to do thumbnails, because I start nagging that we should go to JJ's. And JJ's is a local coffee shop. JJ's is just great for me and thumbnails. I don't know what it is. It's got like a big open space, all these kind of janky looking tables. Nobody's going to bother you. It's never too loud. The music is never too loud. The lighting is dim, but not too dim. It's just a really good place for me to work on thumbnails. Go for a walk, which is what I did this afternoon. In fact, that's how I started this video with you guys, because the weather was beautiful and hot, and I had a little bit of excess energy. And walking is good for you. Burns that energy, burns calories, gets your blood pumping, gets you thinking, and it gives you a chance to actually take a break and leave a situation. So if you're having an anxiety problem that day, if you're feeling kind of depressed that day, if you're having trouble focusing, going for a walk can be really helpful. Clean up your workspace, which is the bane of my existence. I work so much better when my workspace is clean, and it's never clean because I've got 16 unfinished projects at any given time. So I do need more physical working area. My drafting table just isn't really big enough for some of the projects I want to work on. Like, I can't paint Cara pages at my table. And that is something that's a work in progress. Gonna work on that in the next few months, hopefully have a bigger workspace. But having a cleaner workspace would give me more working area too. And plus all this visual clutter, sometimes it makes it hard for me to think, hard for me to focus, hard for me to feel like a human being who deserves to do things and have a life. So how can we make some of these really excellent, honestly, JAN suggested accommodations? How can we work those into our lives? Because we are our own employers for the most part. Sure, we take jobs from other people, but we're our own boss. We're the ones in charge of keeping ourselves on task. Some are kind of already tailor-made, like dividing large assignments into several smaller tasks. That's tailor-made for freelancers. Setting a timer or making an alarm to give yourself like a discrete time period in which to complete your task lends itself. The Pomodoro Method, a lot of people like it. I don't, because like 45 minutes isn't, I know you can adjust the timer, but like if you're doing it correctly, 45 minutes is just like the wrong amount of time for me. It has to be 15 or like an hour and 30. And I can totally set my own alarms for that. Provide a checklist of assignments. We can definitely do that. Use a wall calendar to emphasize due dates. That is something completely feasible. You can use a wall calendar, you can use a pocket planner, you can use a desktop jotter. If you need that visible at all times, that is definitely doable. I have friends who, and it's really clever, they have the wall space for it, I love it. They use colored post-it notes to do the month, and they have different colors to denote what different days signify. And some of my friends will also do their comic planning on the wall using Post-it notes as well. Now I have a problem where my Post-it notes always fall off the wall, so I'd have to like staple them on there. So that won't work for me personally, but I think it's a great idea. And if you're looking for an easy suggestion, that could be the way to go. We can also write down our own instructions. We can copy things down into notepads. When I'm doing commissions, so in the last week's video, I mentioned a commissioner who did it perfectly. She knew exactly what she wanted, how many she wanted, the sizes she wanted. And all I did was I copied that out of the email into a notepad doc, and I saved that with the commission photos, the commission reference, so everything is in one folder together because I need those written instructions. I need to be able to reference them. And I don't want to have to dig around my emails and email chains to find them. So for me, pulling that kind of information out of my email, maybe putting it in a Trello, maybe putting it in a folder is really good. Those of us who work from home, be honest with yourself. Do you or do you not work better with a podcast on? Do you or do you not work better listening to music? It's okay if you legitimately work better listening to 2000 jams because you know them well enough, you can sing along with them, but they're not distracting. That's totally fine. But it's also fine if you can't do that. It's also fine if you can't have TV or anime on in the background, or you can't listen to a podcast because it's just too distracting. There's nothing wrong with not being able to work that way. So there are some things we can't easily do, like installing a cubicle. Although you could kind of put bookshelves around yourself, I guess. I'd be afraid of the books falling on me, but that's my apartment. We can also, I should definitely reduce visual clutter. Doesn't need to be here anymore, needs to move on. Yeah, I think I would feel a lot better with it down. And can definitely move my space away from visual distractions, at least during my main work hours. The color-coded system, as you guys know, I love it. I need to develop a priority color-coded system because I have a lot of trouble prioritizing tasks and allocating time. And I legitimately sometimes can't tell whether or not an opportunity is worth the time I'm putting into it. And I'm not really good. I give like 100% or no percent. So I'm not really good at giving like the 75% something might merit. But that is something I can work on in the future. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't have the benefit of a mentor. Maybe we can ask an older person in our lives, a parent, someone more experienced to help us out or to hear us out. But a lot of us don't necessarily have a friend who is more experienced in comics or art or conventions that we can turn to in a mentorship capacity. I'll be the first to admit, with my work with how to be a con artist, just answering those questions is a lot of work. I'm not looking to take on a mentee unless that mentee can bring something into my life that I have trouble with, like help me tame the horde. So it's understandable if someone doesn't want to mentor you or isn't in a position to mentor you, or if you don't want to mentor someone. It's nice to have. We would all love to have someone who's like, yeah, do this, do that, don't do that. That's a bad idea. But sometimes that's not an option, especially when you're self-employed. You should totally reach out to people if you feel comfortable doing so. If you don't feel comfortable doing so, like I don't, because I feel like I'm always wasting other people's time with my life, that's legitimate and that's a thing too, and people feel that way sometimes. So, and like I said earlier, there are plenty of apps free and for nominal payments that some people really, really like and really benefit from. I have not found one that I like, so I can't recommend any to you guys, but I look forward to seeing what you guys recommend in the comments below. And then a lot of these are either things that are already part of our lives, like working from home, limiting distractions, being able to go for walks, scheduling, rescheduling working hours to best coincide with productivity hours. And some of them are just completely out of our realm, like sensitivity training. Maybe we can find some videos for that on YouTube or something, or pay a life coach to help us, but that's not something that we can expect to be provided in for us. So in the description below, I have, unfortunately, I have so many resources that it won't fit in the YouTube description, but I have a Google Doc set up with some resources and some kind of valuable quotes regarding accommodations, when you can or should ask for accommodations, and whether you're even eligible for accommodations regarding the ADA. I have a link to that in the description below, and I really recommend you guys check that out. I am by no means whatsoever an expert. If you are looking for expert advice, I would consider consulting an ADHD coach or a psychologist who specializes in ADHD, or a therapist who specializes in ADHD. I am just sharing my experiences with you guys so that we can help spread information, help dispel untrue negative information, and kind of just help and support one another. So I would love it if you guys could share some of the accommodations you make in your life to bring out the best in your work, to help you do the best work you can do, help you be the friendliest you can be. What sort of resources do you guys use? What are your favorite books for that? And what are your favorite apps for productivity? Let me know in the comments below. I promise you're going to be helping somebody else out. So I hope you guys have a great day. I look forward to seeing you guys next week with another My Life with ADHD. And if you're looking for more tips and tricks for living with ADHD as an artist, I highly recommend you check out some of the other videos in my series. Bye guys! So just as I was signing off, Joseph pointed out that a Gantt chart would help solve a lot of those tracking problems. It can help you solve your hour tracking problems. It can help you solve your productivity tracking problems. It can help you solve priority tracking problems. And you guys can find free software to help you make your own Gantt charts at tomsplanner.com or Team Gantt. And I'll link both of those in the description below. I have never made a Gantt chart, so I don't have any experience with it, but other professionals do, and it can be a great way to track your progress.